Welcome back to the Lex Files. This is Lex Benjamin, and this is number 10. And I'm asking, are we living in a simulation? Is this a simulation? And this is obviously following number 9 when I ask what's real. Doctor Strange, what is real, right? What is the nature of our reality? Is the nature of our reality? And today I'm asking, what is the nature of our reality? Is it computational? Is it digitized? Is it simulated? Are we in the Matrix? Essentially, are we in the Matrix? And The Matrix was a great movie. I think it's about something much deeper than, simulated reality. It's about something even more cool, in my opinion, and I'll get into that later. But it's one of the most popular and some of our first even notion that we could be not experiencing a natural and true world. And if you haven't heard of the simulation hypothesis, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, the whole notion is, right, that in the future, computational ability will be so advanced and so great that it will be next to nothing to simulate this universe in totality and all life in it. And the fact that it will be so advanced that to simulate it to simulate one will be almost zero energy or almost no effort. So the ability to simulate near infinite numbers of universes, play around with them, do whatever you want with them, let them happen and evolve naturally, whatever, will be so widespread that you will have, like I said, a near infinite number of universes. So as long as you can allow for conscious minds and life in those universes to experience what we're experiencing now, which I don't see why you couldn't. Consciousness is a wrinkle, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you are able to have conscious existence in the simulation, then almost certainly we're in the simulation. Just simply because you have a near infinite number of potential universes that will likely be created, as opposed to the one true and natural universe that we supposedly reside in, right? So probability just simply says we are in the simulation. I mean, if you care about probability, if it means anything, just the odds are we are in a simulation, and that's just the way it is. And it may seem unfair, it may seem wrong, but the odds are we're in a simulation if you allow consciousness to be digitizable, to be, I guess, you have to allow for us to be in a simulation, see, in the Matrix, right? The brains were still physical, we're still in the physical reality. They were still really the source of the individual. So that's how they got around that. The experience of the world was digitized. And I totally accept and agree with that we, given enough ability and knowledge, we can digitize every experience. Because although, our senses in our bodies, our brains, I should say, are analog, there's no discrete packets of information. They're waves, through our nervous system. We experience things in that way. We're biological, so we're more analog than digital, obviously. So, but the brain, if we can get information directly to the brain, then we can digitize that, I believe. We can send digitized information to the brain in ways that can fool it. And people do that with, deaf people with ocular implants. They're obviously converting digital signals to analog and for the brain to interpret. And, they have actually surgeries and things for people that are completely blind to help get some photons and some messages from the photons being received by the eyes to the brain. So there's possibilities for getting sensory information to the brain from a digital standpoint to an analog standpoint, or maybe just purely digital all the way to the brain. I'm not sure. But the creating sensation experience digitally is not the problem for me. The only problem I would have is consciousness. Now, obviously, the odds are if you can allow for consciousness to be reproducible in a computer, then I'm going to side with the scientists and the theorists and the philosophers that we are in a simulation. 100%, not 100%, 99.9999% we are in a simulation. But when I talk about this, I have an issue with consciousness because we don't fully understand it. And we're not certain. I mean, if we allow for consciousness to be nothing more than a hallucination of the mind, the belief that we exist and we have a separate self in there that has belief of free will, the illusion of free will, or whatever. If that's the case, that the consciousness is just an emergent property of physical matter, emergent property of the brain, of a sufficiently advanced brain, then by all means, we're in a simulation and you can reproduce consciousness in a computer. If that's not the case, that consciousness is just an emergent property of matter, then consciousness may not be a material thing. It may be, and I'm holding out hope for that being the case. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm holding out hope for consciousness being a non-material and non-physical source, not of energy and not of matter, something else. Maybe, like I said in the last one, maybe the support structure for physical reality, right? But that may be the only thing hanging up, us all buying into the fact that we're all simulations. And there's no difference. Just as in the Matrix, I mean, I guess if you died in the Matrix, you died in real life. The consequences of this simulated reality are no different than a natural and true one. So asking these questions doesn't change how we treat our world. It doesn't change how we experience our world. It doesn't change really anything other than something fun to think about, and maybe take a little the hubris level a little bit down on humanity, of thinking that, maybe that'll be a side effect or byproduct is taking our, bringing up the humility level, bringing the hubris down on, because we tend to think that we are special, that, and that leads us to, we're God's gift. Where, it's all created for us. This entire universe is created for us. Maybe that'll give us a chance to take a step back and pause for a second and get a little more distance and a little more, I guess, I don't know, logic and reasoning in our decision making. Because look, we're a simulation. There is no, whatever our God is maybe just a teenager of some alien civilization. And some people believe that, obviously the simulation theory, that we are the result. We are the ancestors of a future superior and far advanced human race, so they wanted to know what life was like. So let's just create this pocket of space and time and reproduce it, and then we'll know what they live like then. Forget trying to infer things from artifacts and fossils. Like I said before, let's just go to the source and see what happened there and how they would, reproduce space and time as space is, we believe it's expanding. I don't know how they would do that, but anyway, you could reproduce that. We could be in a simulation. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really interesting that we may just be a simulation. I think that's interesting. And the thing is that if we are, that the rules of that simulation, just like they were in the Matrix, may be editable, bypassable. The laws of our nature and physical reality may be bendable, mutable, changeable, breakable. So if that's the case, and, it seems like the fundamental laws of physics, C being the cosmic speed limit, maybe that's just a test for us to get past. Like I said, and I think I said in another video, not in the Lex File series, but another video about why can't we go faster than the speed of light? Maybe it's just a test. Maybe it's a test by the creators of the simulation to see, will this version of the universe create life that can see around? That's my thinking anyway. Will we be able to, maybe it's just a test, and not a test in, morality or, faithfulness or honor or, reverence, but just a test to see if we're fit, if we can figure it out. Maybe it's a puzzle to see if we can figure out that we're in a simulation, and then learn to circumvent the soft rules set in place, that are in front of us. Programs, don't seem to be able to exceed their limitations, but, conscious life is not like a program. It can evolve and adapt and overcome. So it would be really cool. I mean, if we were in a simulation, I think that when you think about simulated reality and you think about the quantized nature of our reality, I think there's a good fit for that as well. If you're not familiar with the quantum world, every point in three-dimensional space can be considered like a binary code. It's either a 0 or 1, right? And then you string those zeros and ones together, and then you can start to reproduce a quantum. This is not how it works, I don't think. Building a quantum wave function, this is not how that works. You calculate the probability of every particle in the system being at a particular location, and then that gives shape to that, wave, and then you can add multiple waves together. But for this example, to computize, to digitize reality, you can say this three-dimensional space. It's hard for us to think about, three-dimensional space as being digitized or binary, but think about, this point being 0, then that point right adjacent above it being 1, and then a 0. Then, so there's either matter and energy in that point in space, the smallest point we can call anything, the Planck region or whatever length. There's either matter and energy there, or there's not. And If there's not, then we'll call that a zero. If there is, then we'll call that a one. And by that way, you see how we can start to digitize our reality and possibly translate that into, a universal simulation. So there's nothing, and this is the thing about understanding our existence, is that the computer is the best analog that we have right now for understanding existence, understanding reality, humanity, consciousness. But that's just been the case throughout history. Before, 400 or 500 years ago, we thought the world was like a clock, a fine, advanced timepiece. It was like a watch, maybe with a maker or without a maker. That's because, a sophisticated timepiece with a lot of complications and movements was one of the most complicated things a human being had ever seen, or if not the most complicated. Then, comes the Industrial Revolution, and we thought that human beings in the world was like a machine, steam powered, levers, oil and gears, functioning and flowing. So, it seems like that the best notion, and that's why now I believe that we're now, and we're probably wrong about all of this. I'm probably wrong. I don't know if I've ever said this, but I don't think I'm wrong about everything. When it comes to our physical reality, I'm not saying that we're wrong about it, but we're probably missing a huge chunk of the puzzle. So the things that we think we know may fit totally differently and have different meaning in 1,000 years. We'll be like, dude, fundamental particle physics. What are you talking about? Physics? There's, there's only one law of physics. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? So I think that now that the computer is obviously the most complicated and advanced thing, other than the Large Hadron Collider. That's a machine, but computers help run that thing. So computers are the most advanced and complicated thing we can comprehend of right now. So that's what we compare things to. That's what we compare the possible nature possible nature of our existence to. And it seems to, just like in the past, it maybe made a lot of sense to them to think that the world is a steam, power machine, and the human body being, a machine and a complicated automaton, right? But it seems like even more now, what we know about the physical reality below the atomic level and the quantum level, it seems like, like I said, with the quantized nature of reality, the computer does seem to be a very fitting, I guess, device or system to compare our reality to. And seems like we can fit inside of one. This is the only thing, the human mind, consciousness, I should say, seems to be the only thing that does not, in my opinion, neatly fit. But if you're a materialist, if you believe that's all physical reality and there's nothing more to that, then you can, obviously, like not with our capability, but you can see how we can easily fit into a computer and be all fine and be indifferent to the source of it all. So there are people that talk about, space time and experience and all this being, there's a lot of other deeper theories that I can get into later that relate to the simulation hypothesis. There's some people, I forget the guy's name, but he relates, experience to being like the screen of a computer. So, when consciousness and simulated reality go hand in hand in his metaphor or theory that, beyond, I'm not going to get into that now, but beyond all of this, I'm not going to get too deep in this, but all beyond all of, the physical nature and underlying parts of reality are like the components of the computer. And in what we perceive from our perception, from our experience, through consciousness is the icons on the desktop, the images on the actual screen. So the true nature of reality is below that, is component like, and our experience of it is the surface and reproduction and analog or stand-in or icon or representation of the true happenings. You know what I mean? So there are people that the simulated reality, the existence and reality as a computer, not just for, physical reality, but for consciousness as well, seems to offer a lot of people a lot of room, a good platform to work off of in making correlations and correlating our experience and our observations with this hypothesis, with the most complicated thing that we've ever devised. And shout out to Alan Turing, you know what I mean? Shout out to, I guess, Aristotle, all these people that have, Boolean, I guess Pascal, all these people that have made the way for logic. I mean, in Alan Turing, forget that, man. Like, dude, like, if you don't know about him, please check him out. And I might make a whole video on him. Yes, watch The Imitation Game. But what he did, which was, I don't know. Sometimes people impress me to a degree that almost makes me sick. The things that they are able to do and the things that come from them. And for certain people, I know Nikola Tesla is starting to get more attention because of Elon Musk and Tesla, right? But Alan Turing not getting, he had a movie. Benedict Cumberbatch played him. Yes, it was a good movie, I thought. But the creator of the modern computer, the first person that I'm aware of to map logic onto physical, systems and circuits, to make logic gates out of physical, things. It's ridiculous because that's literally what your Mac is, your PC. It's just more refined, obviously more complex, infinitely more complex. But what came about of him just trying to solve a problem, trying to get something done? Heroic. And it's only made more tragic by what he faced as a result, despite what he gave to the world, to humanity, really, and especially what he did for his country in that moment. And the United States, really the allied nations. So when we talk about our reality being a simulation, it's a probable thing. And it really depends on where you fall on what is consciousness. And you'll see throughout all these videos and talks and podcast episodes and articles that consciousness seems to be pivotal. What am I talking about? Pivotal. Consciousness is pivotal. It's depending on how you view consciousness, what you may think the true fundamental underlying nature of it, whatever you think it may be, will, I think, determine how you view physical reality, and how you view other theories and hypotheses, because consciousness to me is the only real hang up. If you believe it's all physical, man, good Lord, forget all of the philosophy, man, get on with learning about quantum physics. Get on with that. That's where the cutting edge breakthroughs are happening. And that's where really the most accurate picture of our existence, obviously I'm going down quantum field theory. Get on with that. But me being someone who believes that there is something to consciousness, only because obviously I've turned my consciousness in on itself and boom, blew up and, whatever, so, with that enlightenment experience. So I believe there's something more to this. I have no doubt. And I don't really I'm not one of these people that, I will accept evidence, even if it's to the contrary of what I want to believe. But I think it's going to be very difficult to convince humans and to convince anybody that we're just all pure matter, and to have that be a satisfying thing from a widespread standpoint, because I believe that for the longest point in time. And, if we are in a simulation and we're all just pure matter, then what is the meaning? And that's where I really get to, is what is the meaning? So trying to convince me that it's just, you take the meaning out of it. You take the autonomy, the independence, the free will. You take a lot of really what makes a human out of it if you reduce it to pure matter. So I think the simulation hypothesis, simulation theory causes some problems for some people. Like, no, there's no way I'm real and this matters. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter whether you're physically real or digitized, as long as you have consciousness, as long as you have your mind, as long as you have this, as long as you have yourself and access to it, it doesn't matter what the nature of this is, because as I've said before, the nature of this is fugazi from our experience anyway. So whatever you're experiencing, it is irrelevant. The true fundamental underlying nature of your reality is really irrelevant as long as your experience of it is consistent and uniform and, mutually agreeable with the rest of humanity. It doesn't matter, because you won't ever be able to detect it or know it fundamentally. And like I said in the last video, even physics is likely to never, at least not in any of our lifetimes, be able to get at the true fundamental underlying nature and substrate of all existence and reality, right? So it's irrelevant. It's fun to think about, but it's irrelevant whether we're in a simulation or not, in my opinion. I don't think it changes how we approach things. I don't think it changes how we move forward. I just think that it changes what may be possible, because if the laws of physics are not universal, not symmetric, and not hard fixed, because a computer code can be written, and I don't know if a program can rewrite it from within it, but why can't we? So to me, if we are in a simulation, I say, well, that's opportunity to change the way things are. I say that, we all collectively to get together and start working on breaking some of these rules in here so we can maybe, the laws of thermodynamics, maybe why can't we have a perpetual motion machine if we're in a universe where somebody set these laws and rules? So maybe there is actually, now that I say that, maybe there is actually some merit to sussing that out, to getting to the bottom of it, because if it is a simulation, then we can change some stuff potentially. And if it's not a simulation, then it may be hard fixed and there may be nothing we can do about the laws of this universe. So, I don't really have much more to say about that. Are we in a simulation? I don't know. We probably are if consciousness is not a problem. Like I said, if consciousness is not a problem, it's almost certain that we are. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter fundamentally, but it does matter in terms of what we can do and what our limitations may be. But once again, like I said, I'm going to keep coming back to this. Consciousness is a big problem. It's a big mystery and a big question, and one that is too big to gloss over and just adopt knee-jerk or, wantingly the simulation hypothesis, although it's a cool one. And hopefully they make another. We've got a lot of remakes, a lot of reboots. How about we get one of the Matrix? How about we get that updated with new graphics, new technology? I don't know if Keanu Reeves can come back. I don't know who would play that. Who would play Keanu Reeves? Who would play Neo? I have no idea how to think about that, but I would like to see a reboot of The Matrix because, maybe with some of our understanding now, the more populist and mainstream understanding of quantum mechanics, which I don't think we have very much, a very good one anyway. I barely have one, and I've put a lot of work into understanding it from a layman's standpoint, from a conceptual standpoint. So maybe with the understanding that, a story writer, a screenplay writer may have, and Hollywood may have, we can even do The Matrix even better now. And, I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, these big questions about, what is the nature of our reality? There's a lot of good guesses. And I think that it does us well to ponder. I think it does the human body and the human mind and the human soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it. I think it does you well as a human being to ponder these things, because once again, like I said, it opens up the mind, expands the mind of possibilities. And when you have your mind expanded, the day to day, whether it's simulation or natural reality, becomes that much more rich. It becomes that much more interesting, much more nuanced and complicated and complex and detailed. It just adds more layers to it. So, more possibilities are never a bad thing, in my opinion. So I don't know if we're in a simulation or not. I don't really care. I think we are, but I don't know how they handle consciousness. I don't know. I guess I'm on the fence on this. Solve consciousness for me, and then I'll grant you the simulation hypothesis. How about that? And you think about it, and I don't know if I said this, but algorithms can help us get there. Algorithms can condense information. Algorithms can, I used to think, like I said, that I think I said this before, but I used to think that we had to use all the energy and the information in the universe to reproduce information. But with a proper theory and a great algorithm, the universe and all the information contained in it can, maybe be condensed to a few lines of code. Maybe that's all it takes, to with a great enough understanding and enough perspective and enough distance, why not, right? And I think that's something that we need to remind ourselves of, is that we're moving forward pretty fast. And because we're moving forward pretty fast, we can start to see, in my opinion, some of the possibilities way, way down the road. And some of those possibilities are recreating intelligence, clearly, in a computer, recreating reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, right? But consciousness, that is the grand hiccup. We have to understand this, I believe. If we're going to go forward, if we're going to do something worthwhile, if all of these fantastical things are even realizable, somebody has to get this figured out. And, from an objective standpoint, from a independently verifiable standpoint, this is what consciousness is. Not from I believe this is what it is. We did some brain scans and that's good enough and accept it. No, from a standpoint to say, this is how it works and this is why you have it. Let's get there. So I don't know if we're in a simulation. Will Smith, like, no, Jaden Smith will play Neo. That's what I was. Jaden Smith plays Neo. And Hannibal Buress, the comedian, plays more. No, forget I said that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Are we in a simulation? The simulation hypothesis theory, if you've never heard of it, if you never listened to it, never even encountered it, now you have. And I hope it's blown your mind. I hope I haven't bored you too much. I hope it's caused you a little bit of panic and then you've laughed at it. So thank you for watching. I think the next one I'm going to talk about another potential version of this existence and this reality. So yeah, thank you for watching and you have a good one. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.